please go to the website and sign up for the Who You Deal Pipeline Club to get deals that I get sent across and that I invest in myself. And please do me a favor and go and review the show and go on iTunes and give me a review in there. Today I have Jeremy from Go Curry Cracker. How's it going, Jeremy?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you doing, Lane?
Good. So I've been following your guys' blog for a while now. You guys have one of the financially independent in that personal finance blog sphere, and I want to collide the two worlds today. You know, not necessarily, you guys aren't necessarily in real estate, but you guys have been doing some pretty cool things with the lifestyle design. So I thought I'd bring you guys on to kind of show a different, you know, you guys are definitely an example of people who have done it. So maybe just give people a little background of, you know, how did you finally decide to be financially independent? How did you guys do it? And then we can kind of go from there.
Okay. Yeah. So, I was sort of on the normal linear path, right? Like I went to engineering school, you know, got a job, bought a house, bought a car, kind of did all the normal stuff. And then I was heads down paying off student loans. It took me like 5-6 years to do that. And when I kind of got out of that, Uber pay down debt mode, I kind of stopped and looked around and went like, this working stuff kind of sucks. I would like the option of doing something different. Okay? And so I started exploring what options I had, and I found a couple people who had sort of retired while in their 30s and lived abroad to reduce expense. Seed. And now, let's see, about 5 years ago, my wife and I kind of quit working permanently. We've been traveling more or less nonstop. We paused for a brief while when our son was born about 2.5 years ago. He's now been to 28 different countries. And we're kind of living our dream and plan on keeping that going.
Yeah, so let's kind of go back to maybe help us understand the mechanism for getting financially independent. A lot of people that listen to the show are doing the real estate thing, but I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, like Kiyosaki says, it's making streams of income as opposed to trading time for dollars, right?
Yeah. Hey, money's just a tool, right? And you can use it different ways. You can spend it or you can invest it. And we kind of followed the path of hyper aggressive saving mode, right? So we kind of ruthlessly slashed expenses. We're living in like a small apartment. I biked everywhere. We walked everywhere. Like my main transport for 2 years was a bicycle I bought on Craigslist for $50, and I sold it for 60. So it's like the main places where people spend all their money. We just ruthlessly slashed our costs there, and then we took those dollars. We were saving something like 70-80% of our after-tax income, and just funneled that into the stock market. And at one point, kind of the dividend income started paying our bills, and at that point we were basically saving my entire paycheck. And when it really became obvious that we had enough, we just kind of cut the plug on the workplace and took off.
So were you guys putting the maximum into the 401k and was it that extreme of a saving?
Yeah. So we were putting the max in the 401k, plus traditional IRAs, plus an HSA, and then also saving in after-tax accounts.
Yeah. So at the income minus expenses, what were you guys figuring you're saving at the end of the year every year?
Let's see here. So I was pulling in like 135K or something at the end. And so we were maybe a third of that was tax, and So we were saving about 100K, 80 to 100K a year.
Wow. Wow. That's that I know a lot of people, a lot of the younger guys will call me and, we'll talk about this. And I always say you either fall in one or two camps, like kind of like what you guys did. And I think I fall in that category where you put your nose to the grindstone, you save like no other, and you buy rentals, or you buy, you invest it like crazy, and you get yourself out of the rat race in a very short period of time, a few years or 5 years or less. But a
Yeah.
lot of people out there have they have that YOLO attitude of, they're gonna create their lifestyle today. But I keep telling them, yeah, you'll get there, but it'll be like 10 to 15 years. I mean, it's a choice, and there's a lot of leeway in between. But I mean, what's your thoughts on, a newer, younger person, they're just starting out in the workforce? Is that the only two options that there is?
Uh, yeah, yeah. I mean, when you look at just raw savings, right? Like if you're saving something like 10% of your income, and you decide that, I want to take a year off, right? Like that's if that's your simple goal, it takes you something like 9 years to save enough to cover your expenses for a year, right? But if you save half, you only have to work 1 year to save enough to cover your expenses for a year, right? And if you can save something more like 75%, after 1 year, you could afford to take 3 years off, right? And so it's a very slippery slope, I guess, when you decide, oh, I'm just going to spend a little bit more. I'm going to spend a little bit more, and you go from something taking 3 years to support a year of cost of living to 5 to 10 to where most Americans are saving less than 5% of income, like 50 years. So it's when you decide like, oh, I'm going to take a vacation now, or I'm going to take a I'm gonna have like a weekly alcohol binge with my friends, the bars, or I'm gonna buy that new car. What you're really doing is, you're not having like short-term joy or experiences at no cost. You're trading like years of your life of opportunity. So it's I think for the people who are coming directly out of school, if it's anything like my college experience, you're basically used to spending no money, right? You're used to living like that poor college student life with ramen and so on. So if you can call it, if that kind of lifestyle is uncomfortable for you, let's call it. If you can slog that out for like 2 or 3 more years, now you're not just not now you've built the base upon which you can have your vacations and your alcohol binges with friends and your new cars without trading any of your time. And that's the choice you're facing.
All right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit for the I guess the guy who normally listens to the show is probably in their 40s. They got younger kids, and they tell me, "Hey, man, like I just can't do the ramen thing like how I used to do in my bachelor days, right?" The kids want things, the spouse wants things. How did you? And their career is kind of taken off at this point, right? They're making 100, 200 grand a year. How did you guys view the lifestyle creep? I mean, you guys had the passive income coming in. You guys essentially got financially free. How did you guys really like engineer your lifestyle after that point when you were free, and then but you wanted, you deserved it at that point, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we reached the point where we no longer had to make the trade-offs, right? Like the dollars were enough to cover the needs and the wants. But prior to that, we really kind of practiced an active way of designing life to minimize costs, right? So uh, we we chose our housing to be in a location where we really didn't need, say, a car, right? And then therefore we just eliminated all car expenses and we walked and biked everywhere. And when walking and biking was easier than driving, and when the driving was never an option, you just never even considered like, oh, I'm gonna just drive over to the grocery store. Like we just walked; it was a block away. And then for things like, say, dining out, right? People spend a lot of money on food and alcohol. My wife took a very active approach to reaching the point where she could cook such that like our own kitchen was the best restaurant in town. Like why go out to eat? Why pay $50 for brunch for a couple eggs when you could have something that tastes as good or better at home for like $1? And when we had say friends, we're like, let's go out to dinner together. Like that's our kind of our entertainment and socializing. We say that's great. We can go to that restaurant. It would be fun, or you can come to our house, and we'll have dinner here. And they're like, oh, Winnie's cooking? Like, oh yeah, we'll be there, right? And then on things like vacations and so forth, we basically use credit card sign-up bonuses. And I was traveling for work, so the frequent flyer miles and such that came there, and we just travel hack everything. So we had sort of a honeymoon in Hawaii that was free. We did multiple trips where at least the flights and part of our hotels were free, and so that we were able then to go from saving the 10-20% of income to that 70+%.
Yeah, a couple of things I gather from your, just the words that you use, the active, and I call it the opting in lifestyle. You consciously choose what you're going to spend your money on and what kind of lifestyle you have. I know a lot of guys, they kind of think of the biking, some people it's not practical, but something you guys do, you guys have been traveling, living outside the country a lot. Maybe talk to us about that and how that decision came to be. Because I know a lot of people, they say, well, it'd be nice to live in Japan for a few months of the year and just kind of get out of here.
Yeah. So for somebody who's basically living off of a stock portfolio, right? One of the biggest risks you have is that your early year expenses going to drain the portfolio too fast, right? And so we decided that even though our goal was that we could support our desired lifestyle in Seattle, where we were living at the time, right, that we wanted to spend substantially less. So we, rather than say kind of living large in Seattle or starting our world travel by spending 6 months in Paris or Tokyo or something, we went to Mexico, we went to Guatemala, we went to Thailand, right? And we were basically able to sort of live like royalty. Eat out 3 meals a day, go out for drinks with friends, go to the spa, live in kind of like a say apartment with a private pool. And we were spending like $1,500, $2,000 a month. Okay? Like we pay more for rent. So by sort of arbitraging where we lived, by moving about in different geographies where the cost of living was lower, we were able to keep a really high standard of living for next to nothing.
So at that point you were you quit the job. At that point you had quit the job and you were living. Did you have that primary residence in or renting in Seattle, or did you get rid of that?
Yeah, we were renting, and we planned to be renters for life. We enjoy the renter lifestyle. So we just moved out of our apartment, handed the keys to the landlord, sold everything we owned. We have like 2 boxes in a friend's basement still with some paperwork that could just be shredded. But we just left with what we could carry on our back.
Right, and I totally agree with that lifestyle too. I mean, I think the biggest mistake a young couple can make is buy that first primary residence, and now you're strapped with this $3,000-4,000 mortgage, and you just blew out
Yeah.
your first opportunity to buy a rental or invest in the stock market if that's what you so choose.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be a pretty, especially with the sort of the mainstream advice you get for, buy the biggest house you can afford. And yeah, you'll want 4 bedrooms someday, so buy it now. And so it's, it can be a really heavy kind of headwind, a big burden to place on somebody early. And ignoring just the financial implications, it also reduces your flexibility tremendously. Like, if you get a new job offer, uh, that's would be a 2-hour commute from this place you bought. That you kind of have to really consider just turning it down. Whereas if you were a renter, you just hop up and move. You go where the financial opportunities are.
Right, exactly. So how long were these first few trips to some of the cheaper countries? How long were those trips? And I mean, at that point, you're still kind of trying it out, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we had this vision, right? Like the first year, we were going to go, start in Mexico City. That was where our first flight was destination, and then uh, we figured for the whole year we would go through all of Central and South America. But 9 months later, we were still in Mexico. So we sort of uh, decided, like we have like about a 60-year vacation going here. There's really no reason to rush, and we were having a great time in Mexico, so we just went slow. And um, we we did about, say, 9 months in Mexico, several months in Guatemala and Belize, and then we did something like 6 months in Southeast Asia. We stopped to have a kid in Taiwan, where my wife is from. And then the last couple of years, we've basically been doing about 4 months in Europe, a couple months in the US, and then 5-ish months in Asia, and just kind of doing the circumnavigation with the weather patterns.
Yeah. So then the kid came along. How did that change the movement patterns?
Yeah, well, um, so we actively planned the family, right? Like, he's a test tube baby, right? So we kind of engineered the whole thing, and so we had plenty of time to plan and think about it, and we just figured, like, similar to our changing plan for Mexico, like, well, we kind of like it here, we like where we are, like, let's slow it down. And so we knew with him it would add some complications, but we didn't know what they would be. We're new parents, so we tried it. We'd hang out in a place for a month and think, do we like it here? Should we go to the next place? How's the kid doing? And then we'd go to the next one. Really, we've probably the main thing that's changed is we've just planned more in advance. Right? Like, we used to just show up at the end of a flight or a long bus ride and be like, well, I guess we need to find a place to sleep, right? And now we want something in advance. We want to know where we're going to be. We want to make sure that there's opportunities for like a safe place for a kid and so on, that we wouldn't necessarily worry about if it was just the two of us.
Yeah. So I think guys at home are probably thinking, okay, this sounds like a good lifestyle, but maybe some of the barriers are, how do you guys make friends? Or, at some point when you're traveling, you kind of just it's just the two of you guys talking to each other, especially if it's the only, it's a foreign language.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's so we both have blogs, and my wife's a published author, and through that we've actually met a great number of people, and we'll get emails like, hey, I saw from your Instagram that you're in, like, Chiang Mai, Thailand, and we are too, like, can we hang out? And so we'll generally, you don't know who you're going to meet on the internet, so we always kind of filter through, like, yeah, we'll meet for coffee, and then if you're cool and we're cool, like, we'll go from there. And so we've met a lot of people that way. But then also, if you're just, if you're say like Seattle is kind of known for like the Seattle chill, the people are like, hey, I have enough friends, like you're really nice, but I have enough friends. And people are busy with their life, so they kind of don't really want to maybe invest in new relationships as much. But when you meet sort of like that random other person in whatever new town that you're in like in a new culture, they're kind of out of place as well, and so you can form these like really quick kind of deep friendships with people that you wouldn't be able to do back home.
Yeah, I guess I've seen the same thing, the Seattle freeze. And I just see
Yeah,
it as like, people in general, like some people you meet, you're not on the quite wavelength. I mean,
yeah,
I think you and I, Jeremy, we both agree that like working the day job kind of sucks, right? So we have that common viewpoint.
yeah,
I mean, certain people just can't, the wavelengths just don't match up and don't really
yeah.
jive.
Yeah, like if you run into somebody and they're backpacking through, like rural Mexico or something, like right away that you've made somewhat, or that you at least have a lot of commonalities because you've made those decisions. Like, I'm going to leave the workplace, I'm going to go into a place that other people call dangerous, and I'm going to experience new cultures. So you already have like at least that adventure streak in there to build something.
Right. So you guys have some pretty popular blogs. I mean, I would consider that like you guys are traveling abroad, and I would say it's very similar to a lot of people are having their own startups, or they're pretty remote. They don't have to go into an office. How did you guys are in these awesome locations. How did you guys find that work-life balance between, going to the beach or just drinking out of a coconut and getting your work done? Did you guys, was it scheduling, or what was your secret there?
Um, yeah, I think a big piece of it is like we don't really have a great work-life balance, right? For the purpose of getting things done, right? Like we're more on the life side of things. Um, so there are months that go by where I don't do anything, right? Like nothing that would be considered traditionally productive. Um, but there are also, after a period of time of sort of sloth, or inactivity or kind of hedonistic living, maybe, uh, I get an urge to actually do something. And then I'll go through like a spurt of productivity. And when that's run its course, then I go back to uh, sort of the travel backpacker life. But I think in general that probably fits around like say 6 months of travel, or adventure seeking, and maybe 3 months of sort of work and productivity, and then maybe 3 months of uh, maybe like rest and reflection.
Right. I mean, it all comes down to your big why, right? I mean, I think that, I mean, you're a high performer, so at some point you get, like you said, you get nervous, and you got to do something productive and put something
Yeah,
on the blog that's worthwhile, and that
yeah,
that adds entertainment value to people.
yeah, yeah. And um, like I I generally like I'm a big reader. And like I kind of follow the let's see, the Charlie Munger, sort of philosophy that, like kind of you enrich yourself through reading and reading as much as possible. Um, that generally drives me to create something. Right? So I'm I'm reading, whether it be like a book or blogs or something online, because I'm trying to figure something out. I'm trying to learn something, and then when I find a hole, right, like uh, I can't find the exact sort of information I want in one place, or I see a unique way of looking at something that I haven't seen anybody else write about it, then I'll write based off of that. And so it's just a cycle. Like my leisure time is kind of focused on reading, and then I find a hole, I create, and then that kind of spins back into the reading again.
So if you were to think about like the world rotating, and this is kind of the cycles, where is this whole thing going? Where is the big goal leading to? Are you trying to grow that nest egg bigger to have a little bigger lifestyle? Where is this all kind of heading?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, we are basically working on now child number two, um, and so like most of our focus is actually more towards kind of nurturing the family. Um, I don't spend hardly any time anymore on kind of growing the finances. It's all on autopilot. Um, we've we've been now we've because we're working on growing the family. Right? We're in one location now, right? So we're in Taipei, and like my wife's basically working on painting and music, and I'm biking quite a bit and playing the guitar, and so we're basically taking a lot of things that kind of as a child that we like doing, that along the way we sort of either rejected as like, oh, you can't make money doing that, or sort of family or parents or someone of influence says, oh, you can't build a career on that, don't go that route, go somewhere else. So we're kind of going back and tapping into our own childhood and kind of pursuing just those creative and playful kind of interests that we had that are not money related.
Cool. So what would be your one advice that you would give to that person who's stuck in the day job? Yeah, they're building up their cash flow number, and they're getting pretty high up there, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe even $10,000 a month, but they just can't let go. Any advice to those kind of folks just kind of stuck in it and not really looking to take the leap?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, um, there are I think there are two types of people that are in that situation. Um, one of them is afraid, right? There's they're afraid of the am I actually financially secure? Um, and then there's the the one that is uh, they don't have a thing that they're moving to, right? They might maybe dislike their job, right? But they don't have something that they love that they're aiming to. They're not running to something, and so um, you know, generally speaking, I like the phrase like a life lived in fear is a life half lived. Okay? Like if fear is holding you back, you need to understand psychologically where that's coming from, and um, nip it at the bud, perhaps jump. And if if you don't have something that you love that you're driving towards, you need to find that, because that's really what the spark of life comes from, right? It's like finding your joy and finding your purpose.
Yeah, I think that's I just want to really highlight what you said right there. I mean, everybody's afraid of taking the leap, but then like you said, like two kinds of people, either people who have figured out what they're going to jump to, or people have no clue what they're going to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, well
yeah,
said.
and it's like for the most part, I mean, like we'll get the question like, oh, like what do you do all day, and or retirement, like isn't that boring, and I think for the most part, those questions come from people who are more up in years than we are. It's like they've lived so long following the rules and following that normal path muscle. And so it's like, well, if I don't go to work, what will I do? And I find that really so much opportunity for personal enrichment and like spiritually, emotionally, that you're not able to find even one thing to answer the question, what do you do? It's generally a sad place to be.
Yeah, my thoughts on that is I don't pop people's paradigms. And the idea of kind of the same. If people aren't open-minded, I just don't even go there. I don't want to ruin people's,
Yeah,
what they've kind of placed on their last 10, 20 years of their life working at a job that they don't like, that they trick themselves into liking.
yeah, yeah. I'm with you on that. Right? Like there's no there's no advantage to challenging people's beliefs if they're not ready. Like people don't change their minds because you provided some information to them. They change it because they're ready.
Right, right. All right. Well, nice, good conversation, Jeremy. Do you want to give your contact information out there for people to get a hold of you? Maybe
Yeah,
follow you on the
sure.
interwebs.
So you can find us on gocurrycracker.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under Go Curry Cracker. Publish all of our photos, all of our stories, all of our expenses. So check us out.
Cool. And maybe we'll have you back on here in the next 5 to 10 years and see where you're heading off to next.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah,
Cool.
hopefully, the answer to the question will be the answer to the question about what's next will be a lot more exciting at that point. But growing the family.
Right. Well, good problems to have, right? All right. Well, thanks, Jeremy.
Hey, pleasure, Lane. Thanks a lot, man.